Hello everyone! Welcome back to the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. I'm so excited you're here with me in the studio. My name's Kaylee and I paint wet on wet landscape oil paintings. Today you're here for a very special episode, number 67 of my series Tutorial Tuesday, which airs every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Today we're going to do a little bit of a misty sunset scene, kind of like a zoomed in misty background, and we're going to be adding in a nice bull deer at the end, or elk. I think he's probably a deer. We'll go with that. Be sure to check the description below for the paint list. I have a lot of unique paints today. We're kind of going with the brown tones. And then I have some sap green in here so we can potentially make another brown. So we'll just be playing around with browns and yellows, working on gradients to kind of create a little bit of an atmospheric scene. I'm really excited. I think it might be a little bit of a challenge, but just stick with me till the end and we'll see what it turns into. I have my canvas has already been prepped with a thin and even coat of liquid white, and I'm painting on my standard 18 by 24 inch canvas. So to get started, we're going to build a little bit of a sunset tone. So in order to do that, I kind of want to plan out just a tiny bit of the scene by just sketching in where the main features are going to be, because we're going to be creating such an atmospheric effect. Getting a few key elements in the beginning will be really important. So I'm going to use a sable brush and just a tiny bit of brush wash, thin it down, and we'll use some bright red, dark sienna, and titanium white. We just want to get a nice thin, light brownish red. A little bit thinner so that it can run and slide over our canvas nice and easily. And then we're going to pick out where our sun is going to be. Do something like this. And then we're going to build in a little bit of a layer of trees kind of right below it. And we want to create some nice sun effects here. So we'll just give ourselves a few ideas of where some of these gradients might lie. Mix up a tiny bit more. And then we can maybe pick out our bottom. And then we're going to have our big feature animal somewhere right in here. And get a little bit of an idea. All right, now let's work on our sun here. We're going to just start with some of our golden colors, titanium white and yellow ochre first. And we'll just dance this in right over our sun that we decided. Kind of scrub that in. And we're going to work out in a circle with Indian yellow. Create a nice hue right around it with this bright color. And we're constantly blending with the liquid white. Go with a little bit of orange. Just use Indian yellow and a touch of red. We're just going to work down this palette here. Once you start in your circle, I like to try and keep my brush always kind of centered into the circle. So I'm always keeping one end of the brush towards the light and the other end of the brush towards the dark. So when you reload it and you come into this paint, I have this top part into the light area, and I'm going to rotate that and rotate my hand and keep that in the center where the lightest area is. What that does is it just helps us to keep these two paints from getting too close together. We'll kind of soften them out a little bit more later, but we want to keep them a little bit separate first. Let's build a little bit more. We'll grab just a touch of alizarin crimson, the tiniest bit. Bright red, Indian yellow, and alizarin crimson. Keep loading it nice and slowly here. I really love these types of soft skies. They're really easy to achieve if you just take your time and load and blend and load and blend. It'll really pay off. Right now I'm just going to soften this line between just the slightest. We'll come back and blend it even more. We just want to give it a little bit of texture in here. All right, let's keep going. We're going to grab some bright red and we move over to the crimson now. And we're really getting that crimson going. Let's grab just a touch of dark sienna. Oh, I like that. Distribute the paint into the bristles. Very important for a soft sky. Very important. Scrubbing pretty hard. You should be able to hear it. Pressing, and I'm doing a nice tight X stroke with this brush as I'm moving across. The key to that stroke really is just keeping the brush kind of crossing over itself as opposed to doing a bunch of lines like this. That doesn't make sense. So we always want to be crossing over. And then we move slowly and connect them. See how nicely we can blend that? And it's not just about having the paint loaded incorrectly or putting too much or having too little or the liquid white not working. Sometimes you just have to pay attention to what your hand is doing. And a little bit of a change will go a long way. Tighten up that X. Nice and tight. There we go. Now, that's looking nice already, huh? Oh, I like these colors. Let's do a little more bright red, alizarin crimson, dark sienna. Stay with me here. Just a touch of sap green. Oh my gosh. What is she doing? But look at this beautiful brown. Oh, it's one of my favorite colors. I love the versatility of this color. And it's also kind of fun if you find yourself with a little accident of green in the sky. Now you know how you can fix it. Just add some crimson to it, and you'll no longer have green in your sky. Now we're working out from our light source, always getting darker to emphasize how bright this is here. Let's do some more crimson, some more sienna. and some more sap green. Let's make it nice and dark now. On the palette, it'll appear to be a nice dark brown. That's what we're looking for. And then we're going to blend it with a liquid white and it'll soften itself out. Right on the corners. Oh, that's nice. Let's do a touch down here. Just reload that brush and grab a touch more, maybe a little bit more. Good stuff. All right, let's work in just a touch. We'll grab just a tiny bit more red and crimson. Just on the dirty brush, we're just going to keep working with the dirty brush. We're going to move a little bit of color down. Darker. Maybe a touch of our golds. Red, crimson. I'll just bring that in. And we're going to get our brown again, burgundy with the crimson and sap green. And we're going to work that up from the bottom. Seems I went a little light on my liquid white down here. You can feel it sometimes if it doesn't glide quite the same, but not to worry. We wanted this dark down here anyway, so it'll all work out. Let's just keep working with our darks. Let's grab a touch of Van Dyke Brown now. Really cool it down. Touch more Van Dyke. That's nice. There we go. We've got a lot of warm tones on the canvas. It's nice to get a little bit of that balance from this Van Dyke Brown down here. Really cool it off. And we're just going to soften that right in. All right, I think it's about time we pick up a big blending brush. Just gonna get the rest of the paint off of this canvas here. Drop the brush. Might have to save that paint when we can. Big 2-inch blending brush. Make sure it's good and clean. We've got a pretty nice sky here. We don't want to ruin it by being lazy. Just double check. Now we're going to start in the center and do that same blending stroke we were doing with the 1-inch brush, keeping one point of this bristle into the light area. Then we are going to rotate our hand around. See how we can do that? Rotating it and blending it. 2 in 1. Take some practice. It's easier if you just keep your brush pushed up onto the canvas. You can just move your hand as you need, and then you don't lose your place, right? But if you have to take your hand off to re-rotate it, you might lose your spot. So I like to just keep pushing, and then I'll grab the brush as I need to. Look at how nice that is. Ooh, love it, love it. Now, check where we're at. Let's see, we're gonna go in and get some of this crimson softened. This is probably one of my favorite ways to paint with this wet on wet. It's just creating these really soft skies, because you can blend forever on this canvas with the liquid white and really create any type of effect that you want. It's so fun. And I love blending on the canvas. It doesn't always work out perfectly the way you want it to, but it's so rewarding when you work at it and then you get there. Oh, look at that. So cool. Okay, now I was blending. Let's see, we were blending like this. I've got light. Now we're going to come over to this side and keep that light area pointed in towards the center. These corners sometimes can be a little bit tricky, but you can grab some dark and pull it back in. Let's just really soften this out. Right, I'm gonna wipe off this brush. I'm going to go and grab the sable brush I used in the very beginning, and we're just going to pick up a little bit of titanium white and Indian yellow. Just blend it softly on the brush. Just a nice little amount. We're going to go for just a touch on the darker side first, and we'll build it up. Let's see if we can't pick out a nice area for the sun. All right, now I'm going to wipe off the brush, and we go right back up into that, and we want to soften the inside. So we want to make that line basically disappear into the light that we created. And we're going to soften it, bring it into the light, come back out. Just want to kind of almost make it blend into nothing. Now, titanium white and dark sienna, just a touch. That was a little too much. Something like that. And right across the top we'll do a little bit of light. Wipe it off, and then we're going to soften this again, and we'll kind of leave this for a little while and come back to it later. Nice and soft. All right. Now we're going to work a little bit on our foreground, kind of the distant foreground back here. Let's do just a touch of some of this brown mixture that we've mixed up. It's got some Van Dyke brown. It has a little bit of dark sienna. It has a little bit of bright red and alizarin crimson. A little bit more to the warm side, but it's got a good amount of our darks. And we're going to grab just a touch of Indian yellow, or sorry, yellow ochre. We're going to lighten it up with a bit of that. Now we're going to just dance in a little distant kind of row of trees out here. on like a farm, and maybe these are just the trees that block the wind in between the meadows. A little bit darker out here on the edges. And let's just soften that out with a big brush. Rid of all of those brush strokes by working up into it. We'll lift it up. And then let's grab a little bit of, we'll grab some titanium white, yellow ochre, and Indian yellow. A little bit more titanium white. And we're just going to dance on a little bit of these highlights. We just want to create a nice illusion back here, the sun kind of dancing through these distant trees. And we'll do one more row just right in front. I'm going to wipe off that brush and go right into the dark sienna and the alizarin crimson bright red. A little bit more pigment this time. And just a tiny bit right on. A little bit darker. I'm going to pick up a touch of sap green, just a tiny bit darker over here. Soften this out again. And just soften it. All right, we're going to work on our sun again for just a second. Pick up that sable brush again, and we're going to go back into some of our Indian yellow, titanium white, bright red. And we're going to go on the bottom now with this dark and work that up. Just create a little bit of a golden kind of an edge. And we can pick up some of that dark sienna and titanium white again and build up our light. Soften that out. Now, we're going to pick up a slightly larger sable brush, and do just a tiny bit of kind of like a halo effect with the sun. We're going to go with just straight titanium white. It's nice and thick. We want a small amount distributed very evenly into the sable brush. And we're going to go right on the edge here with the titanium white, being very careful where that brush sits. We don't want to move it up or down, just keeping it right on this edge for now. And work in your titanium white. Really scrubbing it in. Now we're going to work out. Just a touch. Keep scrubbing that white in. Now we're going to soften it all back. We're just working with the thick and thin paints to build up a little bit of an area here with some interest. This brush is leaving a bunch of little bristles all over. Just kind of flick them out. And then you can re-soften it. Now we have a little bit of an idea of where that sun still was, and we have this light section coming out of it. Love that. Let's keep doing that. Just a tiny bit. Titanium white, just a touch of Indian yellow. Be right in here. Kind of even that. Little bit of that cool halo looking, just bright glow coming right out of the sun. Love it. I'm gonna just wipe out my blending brush here. Nice and clean-ish, you know. You do what you can. That's better though. I just want to get out a few of these brush strokes that we have left up in here. It helps just every now and then to kind of give your canvas a little bit of time. Instead of just putting all your paints on and blending them all down, just let it sit for like 5 minutes or something and come back so you don't get too frustrated or have too much paint on the canvas and then you're just turning everything into mud. So you can just give it a little bit of time and then come back and then very lightly go over it all to get out the brush strokes. And you can usually get most of them. And if you just go with the grain of the canvas, very lightly with a clean brush, you should be able to get them all out. If your brush is dirty, maybe if it feels a little bit stiff before you start painting, sometimes that means there's some dry paint that's just kind of crusted over the bristles, and you'll get texture that you didn't ask for and you weren't prepared for. So that is something that you do have to pay attention to. If you have some old paint on the brushes, just don't use those for the blending. Maybe just make sure that you keep 1 or 2 really nice brushes of these big 2-inch Bob Ross brushes and just keep them clean for your blending. And then, you know, rotate it down the line if it does get dirty, and you can use it for some other things, but it makes a really big difference. All right, now we're gonna do just a tiny bit on the sun one more time. I think we're gonna come in with just a tiny bit of a golden orange. We're just building the sky and building this light in stages. We want to build the backlight of it, kind of the glow, the ambiance, and then we come back in and kind of re-establish. Looks like I already kind of lost some of it, but we'll do something like that. I'm going to wipe off the brush because I kind of went a little wonky on that. Like the sun had a boob. There we go. Now we'll just soften that. And then we can come back and keep working on it. But for now, let's see if we can... I need to fix this. Now it's starting to look like a pumpkin. less like a pumpkin. Okay, now pick up my rag. I really want this to be nice and bright, but instead of adding more paint, we'll just wipe off a little bit. Because you can do that too, and just soften it. I don't think you can do that with acrylic paints. But you can with oils. Who cares? Nobody knows except for you and me. Now, let's do, I feel like this just needs a little bit more softening in this layer. So I'm just going to come in with my 2-inch brush, actually soften the top just a little bit more. I really want to push it back. Nice and flat. Now we're gonna do some mistiness. I'm gonna pick up my dirty 1-inch brush and go into the titanium white and Indian yellow. It's a nice and dirty brush. We like it that way. We're just going to dance in mist, maybe like fog. I remember being on the East Coast a lot here in the United States in the mornings, and you would just, if you were out, there was just fog almost all the time in the little, you're driving through some of the rolling hills or some of the grassy farmlands, and it'd just be this thick, heavy fog. And I always thought it was so cool because we don't really get fog in the desert all that much, sometimes, but not a lot. But that thick, wet air, oh, there's something about it. Sometimes it's kind of eerie, but anyway, I think it's really cool. So we're going to do that today. Paint in some of this low, thick fog. Just rolling in. Big old bristle lost. Just flick it out. And then we're going to soften this. Give it a little lift. Curl it, not straight up. And lightly go across. And we'll maybe pull it this way, like it's moving. Ooh, more of it. Let's do more here. Whoa, that's bright. Soften it. The more you tap, the more it's going to blend with the other paints you have already on the canvas. And it's just going to pick that right up. Right here in the middle, we need to put gold. Maybe some red. Now, let's give it a little twirl. Lift. Give it that movement before we soften it. Ooh. Nice. Maybe a little more this time. Let's give it some swirls. Just loading thick, dirty titanium white and whatever this is over here onto my brush. Nothing special. Get some Indian yellow. Get some movement. And I need some more white. Ooh, used it all. I lost the lid to this titanium white some time ago. It's just getting thicker and thicker. Goods and bads. Kind of hard to get out of the tube, but makes some really good mountains. So if you're having trouble with your white and you can't make good mountains, maybe just leave your paint open and dry it out a little bit and it'll work better, because it's been pretty nice. And you can always thin it back down with liquid white. If for whatever reason you're looking for a medium texture, you can just mix it in with some liquid white and you're good to go. Definitely done that before. Okay, we're going to let this still blend with what's already on the canvas, but just want to move a little bit more movement, I guess. I just want it to be swirling around. I just think that if you were sitting out here and you weren't moving, that you would watch this fog kind of roll through in the morning as the sun comes up. I had originally thought this would have been a sunset scene, but I guess maybe now I think it's sunrise, but I guess it could still be both. I do that a lot because the colors could kind of be almost in both places, but we'll see. I think the deer are always active in the morning and at night, so yeah, anyway, it can go either way. Just getting some swirly mistiness happening. I'll let that sit for a few. Wipe out my brush, and then I think I'm going to start building a little bit of texture in this lower area with my dirty 1-inch brush. I'm just going to go into my reds, dark sienna, alizarin crimson, bright red, touch of sap green, and right out here we'll kind of build a little bit of texture. We want it nice and soft. Just press up. And we'll soften it out. You can create this grass just by lifting it up. Maybe move it around a little bit. Not cool? Let's do it again. Dark, I'm going to grab some Van Dyke brown, all of my reds, sap green. I'm pulling the paint down so that I can load the brush in this kind of little bit of a round, and then we put that round bit at the top. That's what pushes up all of these fun little kind of paint moves, is actually this bristle bending. So we have to make it bend on the canvas, and then we get all of the bristles bending as those brush strokes on top. Load. Lift. And then soften out the bottom. Now we have like already back here, we have all of these wonderful little grasses that kind of look like those long cattails or something that you would see at the end of the season. Maybe there's some type of a, I don't know, buckwheat or something. Maybe they're about to harvest, or it's their seasonal winter crop. I don't know. I'm not a farmer. I can't pretend. Maybe someday. But farming is a lot of work. I will leave that to the people who know how to do that. And thank you for those that do. Let's do some more. I'm going to do some titanium white. I'm just going to tap in a little bit of mist in a couple areas here. Do a little Indian yellow and titanium white. We've been keeping this a little gold over here. Oh, misty. I did another painting a couple weeks ago where I painted some horses using something similar to this technique, just blending different gradients together. But I just really thought it would be super fun. I've painted a moose before. I've never painted a deer. So we're trying it for the first time. Haven't practiced it. I probably should have practiced drawing it at least once, but I didn't. So you'll get to watch that in just a few minutes. But I'm going to build a few more layers here. Just wipe off this brush. Soften some of this out here. Lift. When we lift these misty bits of clouds and fog that we're putting in, we're just softening the edges a tiny bit, kind of pushing it back. We've got a lot of paint there, so we'll have to come back and get some of those brush strokes out in a few. Let's go up and work on our sun again for a minute. We'll use the sable brush, just like we've been doing. Titanium white, Indian yellow. And we just are going to work in a touch of this. Maybe a little more. Right around that edge. And you can pick up the bigger sable brush and just soften it out a little bit. Just bring it together a little. And then we want to soften the edge. This has been sitting up here for a little while, so you shouldn't be pushing around too much extra paint, but we just want to push it into the background and kind of make the edges disappear a little bit. Just make it nice and soft. But we still need this area to be the brightest. So We just want to very carefully work that in. Tiny bit. I'm going to do a little bit of yellow ochre just into that same little bundle of paint. And we're going to come into this little area here with that and soften it with the big sable brush. Wipe off that brush a little bit. And right in here, I almost want to not know where it ends and begins, just where it's nice and bright. Let's pick up our big blending brush, make sure it's pretty clean. And we're going to go all the way across now. All the brush strokes, just pushing everything back. I think I'm just going to work in a tiny bit of dark. I see this spot up in this corner over here. Just a little bit of dark up there. And we can just blend it out. All right, let's take a look at this. That's getting better. We just let that sit for a few moments and it's easier already. We are reducing the amount of brush strokes, just like that. Okay, now down here, let's do dark sienna, Van Dyke brown, sap green. Keeping it towards the brown, we don't really want it to be too green, but we're really loading up the brush now. And we're going to push out this nice dark layer right on the bottom. Lots of paint. Get some more crimson in here. Crimson, dark sienna, Van Dyke brown, sap green. Nice and dark, that's what we wanted. We need to keep loading the brush here so that it stays nice and dark. But we just use the same color. And we're kind of trying to darken it as we get towards the bottom. Let's lift some of that up. Down in here. We're just kind of grabbing some paint and lifting it up in some long grass modes. Pretty loose at this point. If your paint is very thick, this will work very well. If your paint is very thin, you'll be very upset. So always make sure you're using thick paints for this technique. There we go. Now let's work in a tiny bit of mist on top, just like we've been doing. Maybe we'll it's kind of lower now. Just kind of tap it in. I just used my dirty brush. You can pick up titanium white right on top of that dark and it'll just sit right in there. Maybe a little bit more. And we'll soften this. Let's do just a tiny bit of softening with this brush. I'm just going to clean it out a little bit more, and then we'll soften just a touch more of this background. Push it back. Picked up a little bit of dark there. That's okay. Let's just wipe it off. Stir it up a little bit. All right. I think we're ready to try and paint this deer. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to try and find one of my round, small sable brushes. I like this brush a lot. Then we can do a little practice work. We'll just kind of thin down a little bit of paint. This is just going to help us get this paint to glide right on top. And I'm using just a round sable brush and some of the brush wash and just whatever paint is on the palette. All right, let's see. We're going to have a head. It's got a forehead and a little nose. I do have a little image for this because it definitely helps to have a reference when you're trying to paint an animal. It's kind of looking like a duck right now. Strong neck because he's got a big rack. And I feel like you could probably get so nerdy about making this perfect, but I feel like just trying to go a little bit more loose on it. It can be more fun, but it's definitely more challenging. So if you want to have like a little outline that you use, you most certainly can. And I would definitely encourage you to. But there's some key shapes that you can definitely work on, and if you just get a few of these angles in, then you can build the rest later. So what I like to do is first put in some of these kind of more structured bits where we're for sure going to have the shape be, right? Get the angles, and then you can come and work on the rest. And this will be kind of more silhouetted, so we're not actually going to see a ton of details really in the face. All of the light is going to be from behind. It's coming together. You still want to use the brush to create the angles as much as possible. Let's pick up some nice and dark brown. We're going to work this in here. Now we're just going to try and soften out as much of the layers as possible. I just want to get it a real similar consistency throughout. And since it's all wet, we have to do that ourselves and soften it. Nice and simple. Push that leg back, just like that. Now, it's looking pretty good. Maybe it needs a little bit of a kind of a bigger head. Kind of looks like a moose. It needs a bigger chest. So, bring it down there. That'll work. That leg in there. Okay, let's use a nice big sable brush to soften this out so that we can get this silhouette look to happen here. And it's just like the mountains where the outline is what matters. Let's try. Maybe we could use the sable brush you're using for the sun. I think I had a square one going. And I'm gonna mix up some white, Indian yellow, and bright red. We're gonna use this color on the edge here. It should pick up some of our color and then just blend just the tiniest bit. Load that again, get it a little bit lighter now. A little more just on the edges. Yeah. Blending sable, just soften it. Now let's work with some more dark. Maybe we'll try this big sable brush and mix up. Where's my knife? There it is. Let's just pile this all together here with a touch of sap green. So it should be all of our browns and reds. A little bit of Van Dyke brown. More Van Dyke brown. There we go. Let's try this color. Tap it into the bristles. And let's see if we can darken this a little bit. Let's wipe off the brush a little and then we can soften it. We've got a lot of paint over here, so we just have to be careful and work in stages. Just like always. We'll get out the brush strokes. Now we've got a nice dark brown underneath. Just wanted it a little bit darker there for us. Let's try script liner. We'll go into our dark. And let's just work on some of these areas. A bit of dark. Maybe we can give them just a few darker features. Okay, got some bits. I'm gonna try and fix up this face. It still just reminded me a little bit of a different animal, but we're just making it happen. Gotta give him some big mule deer ears or something. Still kind of looks like a horse, but let's throw in some mighty antlers now. I was kind of postponing because I want to do some cool antlers. Kind of like trees. One. I'm just using my really thick brown right now. Oh, Mr. Bambi. He's all grown up. Let's throw this right over the ear and be behind. Yeah, I'm gonna soften this out. Push it back into the mist again. Maybe we need to go darker. Let's see. Let's see if we can get them just a touch darker here with Van Dyke brown and sap green. It's just a little bit more of our cool dark tones. I wasn't sure how dark I wanted, but it feels like it needs to be just a little bit darker. Leave that for a second, see. We'll soften it out in just a few. See if we can put a few grasses in at the bottom, and then you can kind of mist them out a little bit. Just a touch of our browns. Maybe a little down here. We just lift up the grass. Now we can actually use the big brush to soften this. And by kind of softening, we go into them, we'll just soften and bring some of those background colors into the deer. Let's add a little bit of light. Just gonna go into titanium white and yellow ochre. And with this thick paint, add just a touch back in between this ear and antler here, maybe. Just a touch. Now, some mistiness. Titanium white. It's just sitting and rolling right on the ground. Softened out the paint a little bit on a rag. We can just keep going here. Lift. Maybe we'll even have a little bit of mist that shows up right here in the foreground. And just soften that. Back with our brown on the 1-inch brush. And we'll just add in a few more little bushes and long grasses. Just lift those right up with this brush. Nice bright red. Bit of that in there. Maybe we can create that nice little ambiance. And let's do just a tiny bit of details with the script liner. Just spin down your brush. Maybe here and there we'll do some lawn grasses. Just kind of throw them in over the top. You will lighten them up a little bit. Make sure it's nice and thin. That's all we really worry about for these grasses, is you have to have it thinner so that it'll stick. Maybe a few yellows. Let's grab some liquid white maybe. You can mix that in with the yellow ochres, Indian yellow, bright red. And that down. And we'll go into our nice and dark color here. I have two different brush washes. One's kind of a little bit less clean and one's more clean. So I went into actually the dirty one right now. And it has a lot of very wet and runny paint at the bottom. So I just went into that and it's nice and thin now. A little bit of light. Now I'd like to take the fan brush and go into a little bit of our light colors. Get some gold and yellow, and we're just going to tap into that on the palette. And we'll just dance in a few little burrs and just a few ideas in here. I'm just tapping the corner, letting a tiny bit of this texture break off. Kind of turning and angling it like as if they were flowers, always imagining them going back into a center. You just have to imagine it. A little bit of dark. All right, I'm going to use my script liner and go into some liquid white. And we'll see if we can't dance on a little bit of our highlight again now that we've worked in some more dark. just right around the edge because it's a silhouette. And we have the light coming from behind. I'm just going to wipe out the script liner and use that to soften this edge a little bit. I'm just using my arm on the bottom of my easel here to hold my arm nice and straight. We can just grab some of this and wrap it around. Nice and soft. And we can do just a touch right here. Tiny bit more softening. Just tapping very lightly. Maybe a few more. I like it. Super different, not what I normally do, and really fun. Maybe I'll do like a tiny bit. I feel like this antler needs a little there. Maybe. Yeah, cute. Maybe some birds. I think some birds. I'm gonna use some dark, and I'm kind of thinking maybe some starlings, so there's like a lot of them, but they'll be small, just like they're hanging out here in the morning. More birds. You can definitely stop here if you don't want a bunch of little tiny little M's in your sky. But when you back up and look at it, it's pretty gratifying in my opinion. But some people like birds and some people don't. So that's up to you. But I just can see this scene and I'm imagining that there's birds out here. Because if the deer thinks it's good eats, I bet these birds would be there too. What if there were some going up? I don't know if there could really be too many birds. Somebody's gonna say so. But I feel like this is really cool and I like it. And it's my painting. So there's going to be more birds. Maybe some back here. I like it. Maybe we'll do a nice slightly lighter color. A little flock of birds. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop now. Let's do a signature. Go into whatever is left of my bright red here, which isn't a ton. All right, I am all done with my painting here. I had a lot of fun painting this scene. It's kind of a moody, little misty ambiance scene, and it was really enjoyable for me to paint. It was kind of similar to that horse scene that I did a little bit past, but with the sun really incorporated into this scene. I'm really liking this kind of gradient and softness that we were able to create. So I hope you have fun, and I really hope you give this painting a try. Be sure to send me an email, Kaylee@KayleeRakowski.com, if you do give this painting a try. I would love to see what you end up creating. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought about this painting, and please subscribe to my channel. The more subscriptions, the more thumbs up and comments that I get, the more that I know that I'm giving you something that you enjoy and that you want to continue to see. So let me know by hitting that thumbs up and sharing it with your friends or people who you think would really enjoy it. That's all for me today here in the studio. My name's Kaylee. I paint wet on wet landscape oil paintings, and you are here for Tutorial Tuesday, episode number 67. I'll see you next week. Smile and be happy, friends.